I can't believe it. Time is really flying. It's flying really quickly. And I can't believe we're already on another Friday, another end of the week. So, yeah, absolutely. Thank God it's Fridays, says some of the audience.
Yes. So we had a very exciting show over the last 2 days. We started this whole journey with Kevin Tan, the Chief Operating Officer of Sunway Malls. I was truly inspired by Kevin's sharing, the ideas that he gave of how Sunway Malls are helping the tenants, to grow back together. And one particular thing was his parting words was so impactful for me, was actually to talk about that, if you cannot eat rice, eat porridge. Wow, this one was very, very powerful. That is the typical, what we call the Chinese mentality, the survival mentality, that because it's important to eat today to survive so that you can live to fight another day. So we are all in this together, however challenging it is. You can actually just get out of that. And that was on Wednesday. Yesterday, we also had another wonderful corporate leader. So we had Rohit Nambiar, Aksa Afin. So what are some of the things that you thought maybe Rohit hit very well, Taranjit?
Well, yeah, absolutely. And I think the whole focus around the digital space that he started to play about 2 years ago, and he mentioned that very clearly. That was one. The second one was now how that results or the outcomes of that are coming to fruition today. And he's actually looking at a 2 to 3 year time horizon. And that's the right thing to do, if you ask me frankly. The great thing about it was the ability for him now to rise up the ranking or the league table as AXA Afin Life Insurance. And they're doing really, really well. I mean, the fact that at this time and age, they are exponentially growing in terms of their growth revenue. Kudos to him and his team. Well done there.
So which brings us to today. So who do we have joining us this evening? Taranjit, if you may do the honor to introduce.
Absolutely, and I've been very eager to bring in this guest for today. Is an excellent individual. But before that, let's talk about the focus. The focus is about the reality. The focus is about what do we need to do to address that reality. The business as it stands today, it is a zero-sum game. Either we change, we evolve, or we die, and that's as clear as it gets. We're hearing this every day as we're going through this journey. And within that is the area of disruptive leadership. And within the area of disruptive leadership is the area of digital. And what does the digital area and the aspects mean to us as an organization? Limitations that the MCO has brought down, whether it be MCO, whether it be lockdown, whatever you want to call it, has been devastating. We have seen businesses closing. We have seen unemployment rate going up. Only last week, we've hit, 680,000 just for Malaysia alone, which is quite significant. And we expect, so says MIER in their report, to hit over the 2 million mark over the next couple of months. Now, that is only the start. So to that end, astute digital and disruptive leadership is absolutely critical for business sustainability. So where does that now leave us? And that's where we have absolute delight in bringing in Professor Sattar Bhawani to join us in Elephant in the Room today. Professor Sattar is the Chief Executive Officer and a C-Suite Master Executive Coach for the Center of Executive Education, CEE, and as well as the MD of Executive Development Associates Asia Pacific, EDA. Now, Professor Sattar was awarded the 2019 Executive of the Year for HR Consulting, and that's out in Singapore with the Singapore Business Review Management Excellence Awards. That's an absolute brilliant accolade there. He's also a noted commentator. He's written many articles and is currently on his book. The second book is coming out, and that's entitled Leadership in Disruptive Times. And if I understand this correctly, a little bit about that from Sattar, he is going to be looking at launching this next month, if I hear it correctly. And that book is the first book of its kind at this point in time to touch on the impact of COVID-19, this entire pandemic, on businesses, but it also goes one step further to provide organizations with tools, framework, and thinking on how to pragmatically develop and map their transformational journey in this current unsettling times. Professor Sattar is an executive MBA holder from Golden Gate University out in California, and he is a bachelor in business administration out of Curtin, where I also grew up, not too far down the road in Perth, in Western Australia. Professor Sattar, welcome in the room.
You're welcome. Thank you, Mihan. Thank you, Taranjit. Thank you for having me here. It's a pleasure. Yeah. Thank you for the question, Mihan. I think this is the reality which many, as Taranjit mentioned earlier, that every single day we have news, with regard to the impact of the pandemic on business operation, on sustainability. The reality is that many of these businesses are struggling to survive. And the OECD, in a global survey last month, I believe, and has published worldwide in different markets the state of the economy, particularly the SME, that is being impacted very badly, as high as about 90%. In Hungary, in Eastern Europe, in Asia, can be up to 30-40%, and it's increasing. In China, it's about 40%, 50%. So it varies. It's going to get worse before it gets better. The reality is this: many of these businesses prior to COVID-19 have had the opportunity to transform their business, to look at digital technology or digitalization or transformation using technology to transform their business. And the interesting thing is that my research that I publish in my book that's coming up next month is that what's happening is that COVID-19 actually accelerate the need for digital transformation. Now, what is happening on SME, as you're talking about, there are two sides: supply side and the demand side. If you look at what happened, since January, February, and in Singapore and in Malaysia, primarily, I would say we don't see the impact until probably starting in early March and so forth. And the business start with the lockdown measures, with all the Malaysia's MCO, in Singapore we call it circuit breaker. And what has happened is that two things happen. One, from the supply side, you see this reduction in the labor force, workers to be impacted unwell, or they have to stay at home, look after the children, schools are closed, and the movement of people are restricted. And the reality is this: we've never faced this before. This is totally unprecedented. There's no something that you can fall back upon. So this is totally new. So this one is from the supply side, and companies, SME, are suffering. From the demand side, it's worse because there would be sudden loss, a dramatic loss of revenue. What does it mean is that many of these SME cannot function because of severe liquidity shortages.
Yes.
That is the most important. What does it mean? Consumer experience loss of income, fear of contagion. They don't go out. Government restriction of safe distancing measures and so forth. Stay-at-home policy, and this heightened uncertainty has created, unfortunately, the reduced spending and consumption by consumer. Now, what does it mean is that it's compounded by the fact that fear of being laid off, and the reality, people start being laid off, and that means people are not able to pay for for things that they want, or companies, SME, are not able to pay the salaries. Now that is the impact.
Yes.
First of all, we talk about digital. there are two things. One, you need to understand, if you're talking from a business perspective, running an operation, running a business, many people tend to have this, when I interacted with a lot of CEOs as a C-suite executive coach, primarily engaging the CEO and the C-suite, one of the things that I realized, the focus is always on technology. Technology is only an enabler, but what is important is to focus on the people. And in any organization that has gone through transformation of digital revolution, if I can give an example, the good example closer to home is DBS Bank, and a bank that has transformed from a state-owned bank to private bank into a commercial bank, into what we call the first world digital bank, and been recognized the best in the world. What Piyush Gupta, the CEO, did when he came on board in 2009 from Citibank, he made it clear. And in my book, I do the case study very clearly. We focus on the culture and the people, not the technology.
Yes.
So Taranjit, you asked, what does digital disruption means? It's all about understanding the digital technology, on when to use it, how to use it, but leveraging on the talent you have and creating the right culture to support it. That's number
Well
one.
done.
If you don't get it right, nothing else works.
Absolutely. Now, can I?
I believe that all of us has potential. I mean, most of us would have some, through experience, through development, we would have some form of some level of competency. But the disruption, the disruptive leadership competency, or what I call the disruptive digital leadership, the set of competency, the suite of competencies are different. How different it is. Number one is all about developing a set of agility. We all know about agility. We talk about change. We know agility is important. But what is more important, that you need to develop 4 types of agility. Learning agility is given. All of us need to develop that effectively. Learn, unlearn, relearn. A couple of days ago, I was talking to a group of a bank where senior executive, all the top leadership was in the room, and I told them 90% of what they have learned in the MBA, postgrad, you can throw it away. 90%. Now, well, I'm just kidding. Throw it away means put it aside, because in today's context, we're talking about the volatility, uncertainty, complexity, ambiguity, the disruption that we are facing today, the digital disruption, requires you a different set of competency. One is we're talking about mental agility. Now, what is mental agility? Someone who's able to leverage on his suite of cognitive readiness, thinking skills, higher level of thinking skills, critical thinker, able to solve problems, thinking through problems. Second is people agility. How do you leverage on your relationship to others? And that deals with self-awareness. You need to know what you're good at. And for example, very good example is you must understand as a CEO, and I always tell CEOs, you may be good at running a business, but you may not know what are the consumer trends, what are the newer technology. Adopt reverse mentoring. Reverse mentoring. Because mentoring, as it is, as we know, is where you have much more older, much more experienced leader trying to guide the young, is good. But in the context of the digital revolution, you need to adopt reverse mentoring. Third, besides mental agility, people agility, third is change agility. How can you experiment? How can you test and experiment? How can you fail fast? How can you deal with the discomfort of change? But the reality is that change is going to happen so quick. Can you embrace? Can you accept that? Fourth is the results agility. This is where you need to get it right the first time, all the time, by leveraging on the talent that you have. Now, what do I mean by that? It's called results-based leadership. In my book, I talk about, very important, start with your self-awareness, which I talked about earlier, then get your team ready. In any digital transformation agenda, you cannot depend on one individual. You as a CXO or CDO or CTO who's leading the transformation cannot get it done. So you need to get the right talent, drive, inspire them, motivate them, and give them empowerment and make them feel, a part of the transformational team. And all these things, let me just and Taranjit, one competency that is so important is empathy. Now you may tell me, oh, Prof, when I say this, people tell me, oh, I know about this, there's nothing new. But in today's context, in robotic, in what we talk about robotic, in the truly, the advanced technology, we talk about RPA, robotic process automation, we talk about AI, machine learning, big data. All these things doesn't matter if you do not have a good understanding of the most important part of the business, that's your customer. In the digital transformation, digital revolution, what matters is the customer through design thinking, understanding. And to do that, robot cannot do that. Technology cannot do that. You need human like me and you, Muyan, Taranjit, who has the ability to feel for the people, feel for the customer. That's very important.
Correct, Prof. So maybe just to hang on there, thank you for your inputs. Now I just want to quickly just address some of our audiences out there. Thank you for tuning in. I know we are having some technical issues, but so far we have not able to identify. If you hear the echo, which I think now we don't have it anymore, we apologize for that, right? So maybe, Prof, before we proceed further, I just want to quickly get one question from Dr. Michael Heng, your good friend from Singapore. Dr. Michael has asked this particular question. Let me just put it down there. He said that corporate culture, especially trust, was severely impacted when many companies just dump their employees when MCO began. How can companies restore this fundamental corporate value post-MCO? Maybe your thoughts on this, Professor?
Yeah, Michael, it's been ages since we last been in touch, so thank you for the question. You see, Mihan, that's a very important question. I always advocate clients and friends who are in business that since my global financial crisis days when I was with DBM, the largest operation firm, organizations have to remember this. When you are facing a situation like that, where you need to, for example, HSBC just announced 23,000 people, they need to be let go. There are two things you need to be very clear. One is called organizational justice. Second is procedural justice. Organizational justice is where you need to be fair to all employees and looking at the business moving forward, what the strategy for the business, what are the set of skills, competencies required for the future, and then evaluate everyone fairly and make sure that you retain or you keep those that would be able to help you to move forward. Then those who remain behind, those that you have to let go, which is the reality of business, you have to do that. Then you need to adopt procedural justice, meaning that you need to maintain the trust, as Michael mentioned, that the trust has to be maintained on how you ensure that people who remain behind will still trust you, the leadership, trust the organization, because you do mean that. But unfortunately, the reality of a lot of companies do the other way around. They disappear, they let go, they do not explain, they do not show empathy, care. And that affects the brand reputation, the employer branding, and with the age of social media in today's context, is damaging the brand for many, 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 many years to come. This is the sad thing that.
And one of the things that comes out from this whole area is around authentic leadership, if you ask me. And we've talked about that, both you and I, and we've debated around this, and I'm glad that you're raising this. So the next thing is, and I'm cognizant of time here, the next thing is in terms of the skills that are required. We've talked about managers as a whole, we've talked about agility, and I referred to the likes of Damiri Petra, who talked about this a couple of sessions back. We talked about David Jones, and David actually focused on the area of honesty. What are the skills required by a digital leader, Professor, in your research that you've done?
Yeah, so I think first of all, yeah, I remember David Jones talked about that, authentic leadership, and Damiri and so forth. I think the great speakers have been, before me has expounded greatly. But I think for everyone, every employee, not just leader, everyone, The leader have different set of competencies. I think number one for every employee who wants, or every individual who wants to thrive in the digital era, which we are in now, the fourth industrial revolution, is emotional resilience. You need to have a great understanding of yourself, self-awareness and empathy, I mentioned earlier. So this is a skill that you need to really develop, how to understand yourself, how do you relate to people, how do you work with people, and you need to be able to accept that you do not know everything. The biggest problem we have today in organizations of employee at all levels is called knowing doing gap. That starts from the CEO right down to any employee in the front line. So you need to understand knowing that you don't have all the answers, and you need to be able to collaborate, embrace, welcome people working together. Third is about ability to be agile, and adapt to the changing situation. And this is where I think it's difficult for many of the boomers, the Gen X, because they used to work in a situation, in an environment where everything is so stable. So when you're talking about the Gen Z, the digital native that's born between 1995 to 2010, they find it easier to adapt. The Gen Y, they find it easier. So learn from them. My advice to those, the older generation, the Gen X, boomers, learn from your younger colleagues. Learn from your children. I'm learning from my children, my sons, who are more, one of them, both of them have different, set of quality, but I learned from both of them different set of, their tenacity, their perseverance, their ability to handle change. And this is something that we have to learn to accept feedback. Accept feedback. You cannot thrive in the new world. You cannot doing the same thing that you're doing. It's what my friend Marshall Goldsmith, who endorsed my book, by the way, both books were special, endorsed by Marshall, the world's #1 guru in leadership and in coaching. He says, what get you here won't get you there. What have you been successful for the last 20 years will not get you the next 20 years if you don't change the way your mindset, the way you hire people, the way that you assess talent. And remember one last thing, I've spoken a lot about individual. I think for organization leaders is very important. The responsibility to to identify, assess, and develop leaders lies with you, the business leader, not HR. HR role is to facilitate. HR role is to help you to get where you want to go. You must take the responsibility, and you must be accountable to be able to embark on the talent management succession planning process. And you must also acknowledge you're not indispensable.
Yeah. One
of the questions, I was talking to somebody this morning at another interview, a magazine was interviewing me for my book, and asked me, said, what can leaders learn from your book about the future? These are entrepreneurs. These are talking about a business founder entrepreneur. And I told them, what happened is tomorrow, when you woke up or you walk out the door on the road, you get knocked down by the bus. What's going to happen to your business? What are your business sustainability? What are your succession planning? Where does all these things come in? We all think we want to live and for a very long time, that is not the way.
So, Prof, thank you for that. Because we are cognizant of time and we got a few questions coming, I want to quickly get your thoughts on answering this question for our audience, so that we have much more inputs, all right? So I will just jump into it if you allow me. First question is from Perlita, all right? Perlita Tiro here. So I think it's she, right? She wants to point out, instead of cutting salaries, leadership must be able to pay whatever necessary to pay to the people with the right qualities. And this is not the time to stinge or to lose your people. So she answered, asked it whether do you agree on this and what is your point of view?
Under normal circumstances, I would agree, Perlita. Thank you, Perlita. Perlita is, is a very seasoned recruiter for many, many years. Under normal circumstances, I agree. But in today's context, the reality is this, Perlita and Mihan and everybody else, we have to recognize the fact that business is not going to survive. You have to change the way we do things. And to pay someone to be able, you see, is pay for performance, and you look at the talent you have, and this is demand and supply. If you have a talent that really you need to be able to transform your business to help you to execute your strategy post-COVID. So the number one thing you need to be very clear is what does a post-COVID looks like for your business, and what does it take to transform their business. So this is where, Palita, I think salary is secondary. If you can get the right talent for the money that you have, or based on your compensation philosophy. But in the reality, we cannot afford some of these people. And we have to, and some people, you have to let go. And it's just the reality. But if you can afford, keep them at the salary that they deserve. So it's a pay for performance. Pay the talent what they deserve. Yeah.
So my question then is, can we pull up Zorab's point there, Muihan? He raised some very interesting comments around the type of, there we go. Zorab Chong, a very distinguished individual, has stated, in the recent VUCA environment, I've listed the following 8 categories of disruption: technology, business modeling, customer, competition, workforce, supply chain, environment, and regulations. Are there any other areas that you feel we could add on to this? Maybe one or two, for 1 or 2 minutes.
Yeah, I think he has covered quite comprehensive. But I think the most important, even if I may add, Taranjit, the most important, as I said, in the disruptive environment, in the digital transformation, is about the customer. Now, we need to understand that that is the first and foremost. You must be able to have an outside-in perspective. You must be able to develop the disruptive mentality and ask yourself, are we ready? Do we really understand? Do we really understand the pain points of the customer? That's why the empathy comes in. So I think he has listed all those areas from a disruption perspective. I agree. Second, to do that, your people, PPT, people before process and technology. So to achieve this customer obsession, or to have this ability to develop this customer obsession, customer centricity, you need to develop your people first. So I think that is what I think Zorab did a great job. He's identified those areas, and I would advocate to focus on these 2 first. Focus on the customer using design technology or whatever, design thinking, whatever, and then go back to the basic of your people. Look at the people. Who can help you to move to where you want to go? There's 3 questions I will advise organizations. Where are we today? Where do you want to go? How do we get there? The how do we get there is the PPT, people, process, technology.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you so much, Professor Satta, for that. And guess what? We are running out of time. It's already almost 6:30 already. Oh, well, we always enjoy ourselves when the time flies. So maybe before I'll get you to go backstage, and we want to first thank you for your presence and sharing your opinions. I also wanted to just highlight one of our audience here, good friend of mine as well, Hua Chai here. So Hua Chai sends his regards, I think. He says you were once colleague, all right, I think, if you remember Hua Chai. So that's one. As well as also we got Maisara here, I think. So he's talked about great sharing. We learned a lot from COVID, something that we will never happen. And maybe before we get you to close our session, one last advice for all our business manager, and we need to do this one quick one, Prof. Maybe 2 minutes, quick advice to all our business managers.
Yeah, very quick. Yeah, thank you. I think very important, number one, you need to be grounded to reality. We need to have a sense of optimism. I always tell CEOs, managers, have a sense of optimism, but be grounded to reality. There are things that are beyond your control. Yeah. Second, I think you need to accept the fact that you don't have all the answers. This is a knowing, a lot of us experiencing what we call knowing doing gap. The earlier we acknowledge that we do not have all the answers, go out and get help. Seek help. Doesn't matter whatever, whether you're in the private sector, in government, everywhere. Seek help. No one, this is unprecedented, but the excuse given by a lot of people, even including politicians, including government leaders, I've been hearing worldwide, is that this is unprecedented. Therefore, we don't have no playbook. We have no experience. So let it be. We have to accept it. No, 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 no. We have to ask ourselves, do we have the mentality? What are we going to do? Do we have the strategic insights? This is, Bill Gates has predicted this in 2015. What we talk about the pandemic. If you go and Google about the pandemic, Bill Gates, and many people do not take him seriously. Now, my point is this, from a business leadership point of view, shift your mental model, disrupt your mentality, adopt reverse mentoring, learn from your younger children, younger colleagues, younger relatives, and I learned a lot from them. Sometimes it's a humbling experience. And lastly, something which I always learn, the late APJ Kalam, Dr. Kalam, from the late president of India, who was the director of the Indian Space Research Institute. I learned something from him, and also Mahatma Gandhi, these two individuals, about what we call, and of course Nelson Mandela, about humility. And when I was young, I mean, this is something which, you know, we are so successful, we think we know everything, we're not grounded. Sometimes it's very humbling to get feedback that, look, Dad or something, Prof, I don't think you know. I don't think that's all that what you're talking about may not be relevant or may not be applicable. And you need to accept that sometimes feedback. And one last point, Mihan Taranji, before we end, if you really want genuine feedback, don't ask your mother. Mother is the wrong person to ask. Don't ask your spouse. The best person is to ask your children between the age of 12 to 16. If you have a children between the age of 12 to 16, ask them, they will give you real feedback, because how hard it is, they make you cry, but you still will love them. But how tough feedback it is about empathy, about talking about social intelligence, all these are important for the work, for the future in the disruptive economy. Ask your children. And I went through that with my sons. And sometimes it's very tough to get those feedback, but it helps me to be grounded. It helps me to be grounded, and that is what we need. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Sattar. And we will see you in a short while me and Taranjit close the show. Thank you so much for all your sharing again. Okay. Oh, so Taranjit, exciting.
Mind-blowing. Absolutely mind-blowing. There's just so much in such a short time. And it's always a pleasure talking to Professor Sattar. He's a wealth and a fountain of information and a fountain of wisdom, if you ask me. So a couple of things here very quickly. Very good feedback on how businesses should realign themselves. I really like the area around the 4 mental agility and the 4 agilities as a whole. I won't go through them in any more detail, but the area around digital leadership and what is required in the digital leadership is absolutely crucial. We're seeing it playing out every day now, more so over the coming days. And I think what Prof has mentioned out is absolutely key. Feedback is critical. We don't know the answers. We don't have it all. So you know what? We have to work together. If we can't work together, what's the whole thing about collaboration? I also like the last point about fail and fail fast. Yeah. Because you know what? The faster we fail, the faster we will know that this is not the right way to go. Yeah. And we heard this exactly from Rohit yesterday. Those are my couple of things that I took away. Muihan?
Great. So I actually just wanted to emphasize the point on, I think, design thinking or design focus mentality in moving forward. And I think that is one thing that resonates with me very well in moving forward for any kind of businesses, engagement, and things like that. So we are already exceeded a lot of time. So sorry by our audience, but thank you for staying back. We will resume our session next Monday at 6 p.m. Same back on this page. So with that, we want to take all the opportunity to wish all of you a wonderful weekend. And if you can, do visit us at our Elephant in the Room YouTube channel. Do subscribe to our channel. Hit the bell button so that you get notification every time we put on a new episode. So with that, bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Stay safe.